banks are the heart of our financial world, yet most people have no real idea of how they actually operate. In fact, Andrew Jackson once said, "If the people only understood the rank injustice of our money and banking system, there would be a revolution by morning." That simple statement reminds us that what happens behind the closed doors of banks affects every part of our lives. From the way money is created to how debts are collected, a handful of well-guarded secrets allow banks to maintain an enormous influence on our daily decisions. Yes, you heard right. Even if you are not realizing it, the banks are deciding for you what you have to do. Until we learn these 9 secrets, we are literally like puppets. But the moment you learn these truths, you can start making much better financial choices and game the system in your favor. And believe me when I tell you that the 6th secret is the main secret of banks that can even make you earn money from them, and most likely they will make me delete this video for this. Let's dive into it. First secret. Most savings accounts benefit the bank more than they benefit you. Many people take comfort in seeing their money in the bank, trusting that at least a small amount of interest will help it grow. What they often overlook is that banks use your deposits to make loans with significantly higher interest rates. For instance, if you deposit $1,000 and earn an annual rate of around 0.5%, which is common at many large institutions, your yearly earnings will be minuscule. Meanwhile, the bank can lend that same $1,000 to someone else at a rate of 5%, 10%, or even 20% in the case of certain credit cards. This discrepancy reveals how banks profit by collecting far more interest than they ever pay out to depositors. And while your money just sits there gathering a small trickle, the bank is re-lending it multiple times, essentially using your funds to generate returns for itself. Rather than letting your cash shrink under inflation in a low-yield account, consider placing at least part of it in assets that can grow, such as stocks, bonds, index funds, or even real estate. Doing so can help you stay ahead of inflation and prevent the real value of your money from eroding over time. Second secret. Banks can create money out of thin air thanks to a system called fractional reserve banking. It sounds like a conspiracy theory, but it's actually quite straightforward. Suppose you deposit $1,000 in your checking account. That deposit isn't locked away in a vault for you. Instead, the bank is allowed to take most of your deposit, say 90%, and lend it out to another customer who needs a loan. Yet your account statement still shows the original amount. That means your $1,000 effectively becomes 2 balances. One credited to your account, and another credited to the borrower. In other words, new money is conjured into existence each time a loan is made. Over time, this process repeats with each bank that receives deposits, multiplying money many times beyond what physically exists. This can stimulate economic growth, but it also dilutes the overall value of money, which contributes to inflation. Understanding that most currency in circulation is essentially digital entries in bank ledgers helps explain why our entire system depends on confidence. The moment confidence vanishes, everything wobbles. Third secret. Banks absolutely love keeping people in debt. Whether it's a home mortgage, a car loan, or credit card balances, interest payments are the bank's bread and butter. Every dollar you owe above the principal is pure profit for the lender. Financially vulnerable individuals, or those who simply don't track their expenses, often carry balances month after month, racking up high interest charges. This phenomenon is especially evident with credit cards, which can have annual percentage rates that reach 20% or more. People make minimum payments, the interest piles up, and the cycle continues, often for years. This cycle of dependence is highly lucrative for banks. The best way to avoid being trapped by high interest rates is to pay down expensive debts first. If you must borrow, do so for things that can help you earn more or appreciate in value over time, such as starting a small business or financing an asset that might generate steady income. Strategic debt, handled responsibly, can be a tool, but consumer debt, used for non-essential purchases, can quickly spiral out of control. Fourth secret, the wealthier you are, the cheaper your loans become. Many people think interest rates are set in stone or regulated uniformly, but banks are businesses looking to minimize risk and maximize returns. If a billionaire like Mark Zuckerberg walks in and wants to borrow money to finance a house, a bank sees a near zero default risk, which means offering a very low interest rate seems safe and profitable. Meanwhile, the average customer might pay a higher rate because the likelihood of default is perceived to be greater. This two-tiered system is the reason super rich individuals can borrow money at rates that sometimes don't even beat inflation. In turn, they use that borrowed money to invest in ventures that yield higher returns, effectively earning a profit from money that costs them next to nothing. For everyday folks, the lesson is to improve your creditworthiness and financial profile so you can negotiate more favourable terms and move one step closer to these sorts of advantages. Fifth secret: banks are not your financial planners. Their primary job is to make money, not to ensure you make money. Though a friendly bank manager might suggest a mutual fund or a special savings plan, keep in mind that banks often push products in which they have a stake, whether it's through hidden fees or ongoing commissions. The nice brochures and polite conversations at a bank's office can mask the reality that you're the customer to be sold to, not the partner in a mutually beneficial arrangement. That's not to say the advice is always bad, but it's rarely unbiased. If a bank recommends a certain financial product, compare it with what other institutions or independent advisors offer. Never be shy about reading the fine print and asking direct questions about fees and return rates. This extra step protects you from investing in something just because it sounds official. Sixth secret: you can actually profit from banks by owning their shares. Large institutions like JP Chase or Goldman Sachs are publicly traded, meaning anyone can buy their stock on the open market. By doing so, you collect dividends, if they pay any, and enjoy potential capital gains if the stock price rises. It's an interesting flip of the script. Instead of only being a depositor who earns negligible interest, you can invest in banks themselves and receive a portion of their profits. This method doesn't guarantee quick riches, and stock prices can fluctuate. But it's an option to consider if you want to tap into the revenue streams that banks enjoy from lending, transaction fees, and other services. Of course, you should do your own research or consult a trusted advisor to choose stocks that make sense for your financial situation. But knowing you can become a partial owner of a bank can open your eyes to how these institutions operate from the inside. Seventh secret: inflation silently erodes your money's worth. Inflation is the gradual increase in prices over time, which simultaneously reduces the purchasing power of each dollar you have. Many bank accounts fail to offer returns that keep up with inflation. If you are earning a mere 0.5% annual interest, but inflation is 3%, you're actually losing purchasing power each year. This problem becomes more pronounced if you leave large sums dormant for decades. At the same time, banks often benefit in inflationary times because any money they've lent out at fixed rates brings in interest that becomes relatively cheaper to repay as the currency's value shifts. Savvy individuals fight inflation by keeping only what they need for regular use in a bank account, then investing the rest in assets such as index funds, high-quality stocks or real estate. Over the long haul, these tend to offer returns that can outpace inflation. Eighth secret: the system is designed so that most money is actually debt. This may sound odd, but consider how government bonds work. When a central bank like the Federal Reserve issues money, it often does so in exchange for government debt. The government then uses that money to build infrastructure or fund public programs. That money spreads into the economy, where private banks also create fresh credit through fractional reserves. Almost every new dollar, whether created by government or banks, is born as a loan. Because loans must be repaid with interest, there's always more total debt than there is physical currency. While this structure can promote growth, it also encourages continuous borrowing, just to keep the system running. For individuals, understanding this helps clarify why it can be hard to get ahead by simply saving paper bills. Real assets, like property, precious metals, well-chosen stocks, or owning parts of businesses, carry intrinsic or productive value that money itself doesn't inherently possess. Ninth secret: knowledge is the greatest tool for navigating the system. Banks rely on the fact that most people don't fully grasp how money is created, how interest accumulates, or how inflation quietly saps their savings. When you're unaware of these processes, it's easier to sign up for high-interest loans or keep your paycheck parked in a low-yield savings account because you might not sense any immediate danger. Once you understand that banks profit from your ignorance, you can start to act differently, seeking better interest rates, investigating alternative investments, or using credit cards responsibly. Awareness of these hidden mechanisms allows you to ask the right questions, stay out of debt pitfalls, and leverage any borrowings you do take on for something productive, such as education or wealth-building assets. Ultimately, it's this knowledge that lets you remain calm and rational in a world filled with easy credit and non-stop advertisements for new financial products. All 9 of these secrets fit together to form one unified picture. Banks occupy a critical place in modern society by controlling the flow of money, encouraging debt, and profiting from the difference between what they charge and what they pay. But you aren't powerless in this equation. By understanding how banks truly function and acting on this understanding, you can protect your savings from inflation, make more strategic decisions about borrowing, and even share in the profits by owning bank stocks. It's not about battling the system. It's about knowing how it works so you can use it in a way that genuinely improves your life. The more you educate yourself on money creation, interest rates, and the nuances of saving versus investing, the easier it becomes to get the best from banks without surrendering your hard-earned cash to unfair fees or endless debt. And by subscribing to this channel, you will also see other ways to create money. Once you see through these secrets, you can move forward with your eyes wide open, designing a financial future that serves you first and leaves the bank's clever tactics out in the open, right where they belong. If you liked the video, like and subscribe so you don't miss the next videos, and I'll see you soon.